You've probably eaten fried fish from a place with a pirate's name on the sign. But here's the question that's going to bother you for the rest of this video. Have you ever asked yourself why a fast food chain named itself after a one-legged villain who robs people at gunpoint? Because that's exactly who Long John Silver is. Not a friendly sailor, not a lovable seafood mascot, a pirate, a liar, a man who betrays his own crew in the most famous pirate novel ever written. And somehow, his name ended up on a bucket of fried fish that mothers packed into their kids' lunchboxes for the next 50 years. Stick with me, because the real story behind that name and behind that fish is stranger than anything you'd expect from a fast food chain. There's a hamburger stand from 1929 hiding in this story. Here's where it gets interesting, though. That hamburger stand didn't become Long John Silver's overnight. It grew slowly into a company called Jericho. And Jericho wasn't just running one restaurant. It was running several restaurant brands at once, testing ideas, watching what worked and what didn't. Think of it like a lab, a food lab. And in the late 1960s, someone at that lab looked around at the fast food landscape in America and noticed something everyone else had missed. At the time, if you wanted fast food, you had three real choices: burgers, pizza, fried chicken. That was basically it. Nobody had cracked fast, cheap, quick-service seafood on a national scale. There was a British-style fish and chips chain called H. Saltfish and Chips doing something interesting on a smaller scale, and the man running Jericho took notice. He studied it. He picked it apart. He wanted to know exactly what worked about quick-service fish and what didn't. This is the part you need to remember because it's the actual secret behind the whole company. Long John Silver's wasn't born from someone's grandmother's secret recipe. It wasn't a family fishing boat turned into a restaurant. It was a calculated business bet. Somebody looked at a gap in the market, the way you'd look at a hole in a fence, and decided to walk straight through it. So here's what happened next, and this is where the story picks up speed. The head of Jericho convinced a restaurant manager named Jim Patterson to leave the burger business and help build something completely new. Patterson said yes. And on August 18, 1969, in Lexington, Kentucky, the first Long John Silver's opened its doors. But wait, before you picture some brand new building with a fresh coat of paint, here's the twist. That first location wasn't built from scratch. It used to be a different seafood restaurant entirely, one called the Cape Codder. Jericho bought the building and brought in an architect named Drews Hen to completely reimagine it. And what Hen created became the visual signature of the entire chain for decades. Blue roofs, little towers called cupolas, wood benches, ship's wheels hanging on the walls, lobster pots by the door. It looked like you'd wandered into a New England fishing village, even if you were standing in the middle of Kentucky, nowhere near an ocean. And that original building, the very first Long John Silver's, it's not a restaurant anymore. Today, that same spot is a hair salon. Let that sink in for a second. The birthplace of a national seafood empire is now where people get haircuts. History doesn't always leave a monument. Sometimes it just leaves an address. Now about that name. Why name a family restaurant after a pirate? The answer goes back to a book you probably read in school, or at least heard of. Treasure Island, written by Robert Louis Stevenson back in 1883. Long John Silver is the ship's cook turned mutinous pirate in that story, a character who is charming on the surface, but dangerous underneath. He's not a hero. He's a schemer. So why on earth would a restaurant chain want to be associated with that? Because it worked. It gave the brand an identity instantly. A pirate character comes with built-in adventure, built-in danger, built-in fun. It's memorable in a way that Kentucky Fish House or Jericho Seafood never could be. You hear the name Long John Silver's, and even if you've never read the book, you know instantly this isn't boring. There's a story attached. And that's smart branding, whether or not you agree with borrowing a villain's name for your fish sticks. Here's your first real payoff, the thing you can use the next time this comes up in conversation. The entire look of those early restaurants, the fried food you could watch being cooked through clear glass, the separate doors for entering and exiting so lines moved faster, the sword-shaped door handles. None of that was random. But here's the twist most people never think about. Making fried fish taste the same in thousands of locations every single day is actually one of the hardest things to do in the restaurant business. Fish isn't like beef. It's delicate. Overcook it by even a minute and it turns rubbery. Undercook it and you've got a food safety problem. Long John Silver's had to solve that puzzle at scale, with different cooks, different kitchens, different states, and still deliver a plate that tasted like the one before it. That consistency, that reliability, is honestly the real secret recipe. Not some hidden spice blend. Discipline. Repetition. Standards that never slipped. And it worked. People loved it. The chain expanded fast, becoming, at its peak, the largest quick-service seafood chain in the entire United States, commanding roughly a third of that segment of the fast food market. Fish and chips on a Friday became a ritual for a lot of American families, especially in communities with strong Catholic traditions around meatless Fridays. Long John Silver's didn't just sell food. It became part of a weekly routine in millions of households. But here's where the story takes a darker turn, and this is the part that most fans of the brand don't fully know. Success like that doesn't last forever without a fight, and Long John Silver's fight was coming. By the late 1980s, the company that had grown out of that tiny hamburger stand went through a massive change. Jericho was taken private through a heavily leveraged buyout in 1989. If you're not familiar with that term, think of it like buying a house with almost no money down and a mountain of debt on top. It works fine as long as everything goes right, but it leaves almost no room for error. And things didn't go right. The debt load was heavy. The company narrowed its focus entirely down to Long John Silver's, selling off other restaurant concepts to survive. But the weight of that debt kept building. And in 1998, the unthinkable happened. Long John Silver's, the pirate-themed seafood giant that once dominated its category, filed for bankruptcy. Sit with that for a second. A company that had defined an entire category of fast food, that had convinced a generation of Americans that quick-service fish was not just possible but delicious, collapsed under financial pressure. It's a reminder that even the biggest names in food aren't immune to bad math and bad timing. But the story didn't end there. In 1999, the year after that bankruptcy, the owner of the A&W restaurant chain stepped in and acquired Long John Silver's, folding it into a new company. And then, in a move that probably would have shocked that original team back in 1969, Long John Silver's was acquired in 2002 by the massive conglomerate behind KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut. The little pirate-themed fish shop was now sitting at the same table as some of the biggest fast food names on the planet. Ownership kept shifting after that. In 2011, a group of investors and franchisees, including the children of founder Jim Patterson, bought the chain. Then, in late 2022, another group of investors took over. Through bankruptcy, corporate buyouts, and multiple changes of ownership, the brand somehow kept surviving. That's not luck. That's a recipe and a name with more staying power than anyone in 1969 could have predicted. And here's a twist that's almost too perfect for the story. As recently as 2025, Long John Silver's made a major change to how it presents itself, shifting its branding to highlight chicken alongside its seafood, with a new logo putting chicken front and center. Company leadership described it as letting their best-kept secret out, adapting to the rising popularity of chicken across the country. Even after more than 50 years, the brand is still adjusting, still reacting to what people want to eat, still trying to earn your business one meal at a time. So, why does any of this matter to you? Why should you care about the history of a fast food fish sandwich? Because it's a lesson in something bigger than seafood. Every product you've ever loved, every meal that feels like a piece of nostalgia, started as somebody's calculated risk. Somebody looked at a market, spotted a gap nobody else was filling, and bet everything on it. Jim Patterson left a stable job running burger restaurants to build something that didn't exist yet. That takes nerve. That takes the willingness to fail in public. And when you understand that, fried fish stops being just fried fish. It becomes a symbol of somebody's gamble that paid off, got wiped out by debt, got rescued, got sold 3 times over, and is still standing today, still frying fish the same basic way it did back when Nixon was president. Think about your own life for a second. How many things have you built or wanted to build that felt too risky? How many ideas have you sat on because you were worried they wouldn't work? The story of that pirate on the sign isn't really about a pirate at all. It's about somebody willing to walk through the hole in the fence when everyone else was still staring at the wall.